Victoria Sterling adjusted her silk blouse for the third time as she walked through the glass corridors of Sterling Marketing Agency. The morning sun cast long shadows across the polished floors, but something felt different today. The usual energy that buzzed through the office seemed muted, placed by an undercurrent of tension she couldn't quite place. At 29, Victoria had built herself into one of Manhattan's most respected marketing directors. Her corner office on the 40th floor offered a breathtaking view of the city that never sleeps, a daily reminder of how far she had climbed from her modest beginnings in small-town Ohio. Yet beneath her professional success lay a carefully guarded wound that had never quite healed, the ghost of first love 3 years ago. Nathan Cross had been the center of her universe. They had met during her early days at a smaller firm, where he worked as a junior consultant with dreams bigger than his paycheck. Their love story had unfolded like something from a romantic novel, stolen kisses in empty conference rooms late night. Conversations that stretched until dawn, weekend getaways where they planned a future that seemed inevitable. Nathan had possessed an intensity that drew her like a moth to flame. His dark hair always fell slightly over his forehead, and his deep, brown eyes held secrets that intrigued her. He spoke of changing the world, of building something meaningful, and Victoria believed every word. She had been ready to follow him anywhere. Then one morning, she woke up alone.
Ow.
No goodbye, no explanation, just a hastily scrawled note saying he had to leave and couldn't tell her where or when he might return. The silence that followed had been deafening. An ordinary Tuesday turned extraordinary. Victoria was reviewing campaign proposals when her assistant knocked on her door. "Miss Sterling, there's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent business." "Send him in," Victoria replied without looking up, assuming it was another potential client seeking their services. The footsteps that entered her office were familiar, though she couldn't immediately place them. When she finally raised her head, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. Nathan Cross stood before her, but he was transformed. Gone was the earnest young man in off-the-rack suits. This Nathan wore a perfectly tailored charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. His once unruly hair was styled with precision, and there was a hardness around his eyes that spoke of battles fought and won. He carried himself with the confidence of a man who had conquered worlds. "Hello, Victoria." Those 2 words, spoken in that voice she had tried so desperately to forget, sent a shockwave through her system. Her carefully constructed composure cracked, revealing the vulnerable woman beneath the executive veneer. The CEO revelation. Nathan. His name escaped her lips as barely more than a whisper. "What are you doing here?" He moved closer to her desk, and she caught a whiff of his cologne, expensive, sophisticated, nothing like the simple aftershave he used to wear. "I'm here on business. I thought you should know that Cross Enterprises has acquired Pinnacle Marketing." The words hit her like a physical blow. Pinnacle Marketing was their biggest competitor. Cross Enterprises was the tech conglomerate that had been making waves across multiple industries. She had read about the mysterious young CEO who had built an empire seemingly overnight, but she had never connected him to her. "Nathan, you're telling me that you, The CEO of Cross Enterprises." "Yes." His voice was steady, businesslike, but she caught a flicker of something else in his eyes. "As of tomorrow, we'll be direct competitors." Victoria stood slowly, her legs feeling unsteady. "You disappear for 3 years without a word, and then you come back as some billionaire CEO to tell me we're business rivals. Is this some kind of joke to you?" The ice wall between them. Nathan's expression didn't change, but she saw his jaw tighten slightly. "This isn't personal, Victoria. I'm simply extending a professional courtesy by informing you of the situation." Professional courtesy. Her voice rose, and she was grateful her office walls were soundproof. "You think you can waltz back into my life after abandoning me and call it professional courtesy?" For a moment, his mask slipped, and she glimpsed the man she had once loved. Pain flickered across his features before the cold executive persona returned. "I understand this is unexpected." "Expected," she laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Nathan, I spent months wondering if you were dead or alive. I called every hospital, every police station, thinking something terrible had happened to you. And now you're standing here in a $1,000 suit telling me it's just business. The words that shattered everything. Ethan moved to the window, looking out at the city sprawling below. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, but his words cut deeper than any shout could have. What we had was a distraction. Victoria was young and foolish, and I let personal feelings cloud my judgment. These past 3 years have taught me that success requires sacrifice, and I sacrificed what needed to be sacrificed. The silence that followed was devastating. Victoria felt something inside her chest crack and crumble. During her darkest moments, over the past 3 years, she had imagined various reasons for his departure: fear of commitment, family pressure, even another woman. But she had never imagined this cold dismissal of everything they had shared. A distraction, she repeated numbly. 2 years of my life, all those plans we made, all those nights you told me you loved me, that was just a distraction to you. Turned back to face her, and his expression was carved from stone. People say many things when they're caught up in the moment. Learn to separate emotion from reality. The professional mask Victoria drew upon every ounce of strength she had cultivated in the business world. She straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, and met his gaze with steel in her own eyes. Then let me be clear about my reality, Mr. Cross. Sterling Marketing Agency has built its reputation on integrity, creativity, and genuine care for our clients. If Cross Enterprises wants to compete with us, you'll find that we don't intimidate easily. Something that might have been admiration flashed in Nathan's eyes, but it was gone so quickly she might have imagined it. I wouldn't expect anything less from you, Miss Sterling. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, you've built something impressive here. Your success speaks for itself. Don't. Her voice was sharp. Don't you dare try to soften this with compliments. You made your position clear. He nodded once, a curt business gesture. Our legal teams will be in touch regarding some client transfers that will need to happen. Good day, Victoria. Aftermath of devastation. After Nathan left, Victoria stood frozen. In her office for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The familiar space suddenly felt foreign, as if his presence had shifted the very molecules in the air. She sank into her chair, her hands shaking as the full weight of the encounter hit her. The man who had once traced her face with gentle fingers and whispered promises about their future had just dismissed their entire relationship as a youthful mistake. The Nathan who had held her during thunderstorms and made her laugh until her sides ached had been replaced by a cold stranger in an expensive suit. Her assistant knocked again. Miss Sterling, your 2 o'clock is here. Cancel it, Victoria managed. Cancel everything for today. She needed time to process this earthquake that had just shattered her carefully rebuilt world. Outside her window, Manhattan continued its relentless pace, oblivious to the personal drama playing out 40 floors above the street. But for Victoria Sterling, everything had changed in the span of a 10-minute conversation. The question that haunted her as she sat alone in her office was simple, yet torturous. Who was the real Nathan Cross? The man who had loved her 3 years ago, or the cold billionaire who had just walked out of her life for the second time? As the afternoon sun began to fade, Victoria realized that the most painful part wasn't his success or even his return. It was the possibility that the love she had treasured and mourned might have been nothing more than an illusion, a distraction in the mind of an ambitious young man who had always been destined to leave her behind. The game had changed, and Victoria Sterling was about to discover that in matters of love and business, the rules she thought she knew no longer applied. Jessica Monroe burst through Victoria's office door the next morning with her usual whirlwind energy. Carrying 2 steaming cups of coffee and wearing the expression of someone who had heard office gossip, her red hair bounced as she practically skipped across the room, her emerald green dress a bright contrast to Victoria's muted gray suit. Okay, spill everything, Jessica announced, setting the coffee on Victoria's desk and dropping into the chair across from her. The entire building is buzzing about some mysterious billionaire who visited you yesterday. And you look like you haven't slept in a week. Victoria had known Jessica since their college days, and her friend possessed an uncanny ability to read her like an open book. There was no point in pretending everything was fine when her dark circles and pale complexion told a different story. It was Nathan, Victoria said simply. Watching Jessica's face transform from curiosity to shock, Jessica's coffee cup stopped halfway to her lips. Nathan, our Nathan. The one who disappeared 3 years ago, Nathan. The very same, except now he's the CEO of Cross Enterprises, and apparently considers our entire relationship to have been a youthful distraction. The investigation begins. Jessica set down her coffee with a sharp click. Hold on, Cross Enterprises, the tech company that's been buying up everything in sight. Her marketing background kicked in as she pulled out her phone. Victoria, do you have any idea what this company is worth? I'm sure it's impressive, Victoria replied wearily. He certainly looked the part of a billionaire. Try $12 billion. Jessica's voice was barely above a whisper. This company came out of nowhere 3 years ago and has been acquiring businesses at an unprecedented rate. The CEO has been completely anonymous until recently, and even now, there are hardly any personal details available. Victoria stared at her friend. $12 billion in 3 years. Which brings up the obvious question. Jessica continued, her investigative instincts sharp as ever. How does someone go from being a junior consultant making $40,000 a year to building a $12 billion empire in 3 years? That doesn't happen through normal business practices. Pieces of a puzzle. The thought had been nagging. At Victoria, since Nathan left her office, the transformation had been too complete, too dramatic. The Nathan she remembered had been ambitious but also idealistic, someone who talked about making positive changes in the world.
Al, the cold businessman.
Who had dismissed their love as a distraction, seemed like a different person entirely. There's something else, Victoria said slowly. The way he looked when he left. For just a moment, I saw something in his eyes. Pain, maybe? Or regret. It was gone so fast I almost missed it. Jessica leaned forward, her expression serious. Victoria, what if he didn't leave you because he wanted to? What if something forced his hand? Like what? I don't know, but people don't just vanish and become billionaires overnight without some serious circumstances driving them. And they definitely don't show up to personally inform their ex-girlfriends about business competition unless there's more to the story. The research session that evening, Jessica appeared at Victoria's apartment with her laptop, a bottle of wine, and the determination of a woman on a mission. Victoria's penthouse overlooked Central Park, a testament to her own professional success, but tonight, the beautiful view felt meaningless. Okay, Jessica announced, settling onto the plush sofa with her computer. If we're going to figure out what really happened to Nathan Cross, we need to dig deeper than the official corporate biographies. They spent hours combing through business, journals, financial reports, and news articles. Cross Enterprises had indeed appeared suddenly 3 years ago, making strategic acquisitions that seemed almost prescient in their timing. The company's success rate was unprecedented, as if Nathan had possessed inside information about which businesses were about to become valuable. Look at this, Jessica said, pointing to her screen. Cross Enterprises' first major acquisition was a small tech startup that was developing revolutionary data encryption software. 3 months after Nathan bought it, every major corporation in America was desperately seeking that exact technology due to new federal security requirements. Victoria studied the article. How could he have known that was coming? Exactly. And look at the timing of everything. His first acquisition happened exactly 1 week after he left you. The uncomfortable truth as the night wore on and the wine disappeared, a disturbing pattern emerged. Every major move Cross Enterprises had made seemed to coincide with significant political or economic developments that weren't public knowledge. At the time of the acquisitions, Victoria, Jessica said carefully, what if Nathan got involved with something dangerous? What if leaving you wasn't about ambition but about protecting you? The possibility hit Victoria like a physical blow. You think he was forced to disappear? I think a lot of money can be made by people who have access to information that isn't supposed to be public. And I think that kind of money often comes with strings attached. Victoria stood and walked to her floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the city lights. But he said our relationship was just a distraction. He looked me in the eyes and dismissed everything we had. What if he had to say that? What if someone was listening? The watchers Jessica's words sent a chill down Victoria's spine. You're saying you think we might be under surveillance? I'm saying that a man doesn't build a $12 billion empire without making enemies. and those enemies might be very interested in anyone from his past. Jessica closed her laptop and moved to stand beside Victoria. Think about it. Could have sent lawyers or assistants to inform you about the business situation. Instead, he came personally. He made sure to establish publicly that you mean nothing to him. So, I wouldn't be seen as a weakness, Victoria whispered, the pieces suddenly clicking into place. Exactly. If someone wanted to get to Nathan Cross, what better way than through the woman he once loved? Less, of course. Everyone believes that woman means nothing to him. The phone callous if summoned by their conversation, Victoria's phone, rang. The caller ID showed an unknown number, but something compelled her to answer. Hello. Victoria, it's Nathan. Don't say my name out loud. Just listen. Her heart hammered against her ribs as Jessica watched with wide eyes. Nathan's voice was different now, urgent and low. Tomorrow night, there's a charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum, the Harrison Foundation event. Be there at 9 o'clock, wear something red, and go to the Egyptian wing alone. I need to explain everything, but not over the phone, Nathan. I don't understand, please. Just trust me one more time. Victoria, if anyone asks, we haven't spoken since I left your office yesterday. The line went dead. The decision, Jessica stared at her. That didn't sound like the cold CEO from yesterday. Victoria sank onto her sofa, her mind racing. He wants me to meet him tomorrow night. It could be dangerous. Could also be the truth I've been waiting 3 years to hear. Jessica grabbed Victoria's hands. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not, he said to come alone. Victoria, if something happens to you, nothing is going to happen. I need to know what really drove him away. I need to know if the love we shared was real, or if I've been holding on to a fantasy for 3 years. The preparation the next day passed in a blur of nervous energy. Victoria found herself unable to concentrate on work, her mind constantly returning to Nathan's urgent voice on the phone. She left the office early and spent hours getting ready for what might be the most important evening of her life. She chose a stunning red silk gown that hugged her curves and fell to the floor in elegant folds. The color was bold, confident, everything she needed to be tonight. She applied her makeup with careful precision. She caught sight of herself in the mirror and was surprised by what she saw. The broken woman from yesterday had been replaced by someone stronger. Someone ready to face whatever truth awaited her. Whether Nathan's story would heal her heart or shatter it completely remained to be seen. But she would meet that truth with dignity. The Metropolitan Museum, the charity gala, was in full swing when Victoria arrived. Manhattan's elite mingled in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, champagne glasses catching the light from crystal chandeliers. She moved through the crowd with practiced ease, accepting compliments on her dress and making small talk while her eyes constantly searched for Nathan. At exactly 9 o'clock, she made her way to the Egyptian wing. The ancient artifacts stood in shadowy silence, their secrets preserved for millennia. Victoria felt a kinship with these relics from another time. Understanding what it meant to carry mysteries that couldn't be easily shared, you came. Nathan's voice emerged from the shadows near a sarcophagus display. He stepped into the dim light, and Victoria's breath caught. Gone was the cold businessman from her office. This Nathan looked tired, vulnerable, and achingly familiar. Almost didn't, she admitted. He moved closer, and she could see the pain in his eyes that she had glimpsed so briefly the day before. Victoria, everything I said yesterday was a lie. The biggest lie I've ever told. The truth begins then. Tell me the truth, she whispered. Tell me why you broke my heart and then came back to break it again. Nathan glanced around the empty gallery before pulling her deeper into the shadows. 3 years ago, I stumbled onto something I was never supposed to see. Information that certain people would kill to keep secret. What kind of information? Government contracts being awarded based on bribes? Environmental reports being falsified to protect corporate interests? Billions of dollars in taxpayer money being stolen through shell companies? His voice was barely audible. I was working late one night, and I accessed the wrong server by mistake. What I found there could have brought down some of the most powerful people in the country. Victoria felt the blood drain from her face. What did you do? Was young and stupid and idealistic. I thought I could expose it all, bring justice to the system. Nathan's laugh was bitter. Instead, I nearly got us both killed. The weight of his words settled over her like a heavy blanket. Everything she had believed about his departure, about his motives, had been wrong. They came to me with photographs, Nathan continued. Pictures of you leaving your apartment, walking to work, meeting friends for dinner. They knew everything about your life, your routines, your vulnerabilities. They gave me a choice. Disappear forever and keep you safe, or watch them destroy. The woman I loved, Victoria's legs felt weak. She reached out to steady herself against the wall, and Nathan instinctively moved to support her. So I made the only choice I could make, he said softly. I left, and I let you think the worst of me, because believing I was a coward was better than being dead. The ancient Egyptian artifacts watched silently as Victoria Sterling finally learned the truth about the man who had shattered and shaped her world, realized that everything was about to change once again. Victoria stared at Nathan in the dim light of the Egyptian wing, her world reshaping itself around his revelation. The man she had loved, lost, and mourned had become a player in a deadly game where the stakes were measured in lives rather than dollars. So you built Cross Enterprises as what? Some kind of cover? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Nathan shook his head. I built it as protection. The people who forced me to disappear gave me a choice after I proved I could stay silent. Work for them and profit from the information I had discovered, or spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder.
Oh.
You became one of them. I became what I needed to become to survive. And to make enough money and gain enough power that someday I could protect the people I cared about. His eyes found hers in the shadows. Someday I could protect you. The sound of footsteps echoed from the main gallery, and Nathan tensed immediately. He grabbed Victoria's hand and pulled her deeper into the exhibit space, behind a massive stone statue. We can't be seen together like this, he whispered urgently. If they suspect that you still mean something to me, everything I've sacrificed will be worthless. The return of Robert Hartwell, the footsteps belonged to a man Victoria didn't recognize, but Nathan's entire body went rigid at the sight of him. Robert Hartwell was distinguished in the way that only old money could produce: silver hair perfectly styled, a suit that cost more than most cars, and the kind of confident bearing that came from never having been told no. Hartwell called out cheerfully, his voice carrying easily through the gallery. I thought I might find you here. You always did have a weakness for ancient history. Victoria felt Nathan's grip on her hand tighten almost painfully. This was clearly the man who had orchestrated Nathan's transformation from idealistic young consultant to reluctant billionaire. Robert, Nathan replied, stepping out from behind the statue, while gesturing for Victoria to stay hidden.
Oh.
I didn't expect to see you tonight. Oh, I make it my business to attend these charity events. So important to maintain one's social connections. Don't you think? Hartwell's tone was conversational, but there was steel underneath. I couldn't help but notice you've been making some interesting business moves lately. The acquisition of Pinnacle Marketing was particularly bold. The chess game Victoria could hear the conversation, but couldn't see the speakers from her hiding place. She pressed herself against the cold stone of the statue, straining to understand the subtext of their exchange. Business is business, Robert. I thought you'd be pleased with the profit margins. Hartwell chuckled, but the sound was far from warm. Profit is always pleasant, of course, but I'm curious about your methods. Acquiring your competitors is one thing, but acquiring them specifically to target certain marketing firms seems almost personal. Victoria's blood ran cold. Hartwell knew about Sterling Marketing Agency. He knew Nathan had specifically targeted her company. I'm not sure what you're implying, Nathan replied carefully. Oh, I think you know exactly what I'm implying. You? See, I make it my business to know about the people in your past, Nathan, including a certain Ms. Victoria Sterling, who runs a very successful marketing firm. The same Ms. Sterling you visited personally yesterday to discuss business matters. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria could practically feel Nathan's mind racing, trying to find a way to protect her without confirming Hartwell's suspicions. The ultimatum: you've been keeping tabs on me, Nathan said finally. I keep tabs on all my investments. And you, my dear boy, represent a very significant investment. Hartwell's voice moved closer, and Victoria heard his footsteps on the marble floor. Which is why I need to be absolutely certain that you haven't developed any inconvenient attachments that might compromise your judgment. My personal life has never interfered with business, hasn't it? Then you won't mind if I arrange a more permanent solution to the Sterling marketing problem. After all, if they're simply business competitors, their elimination should be a matter of indifference to you. Victoria pressed her hand to her mouth to stifle a gasp. This man was talking about destroying her company, or worse, as casually as discussing the weather. That seems unnecessarily aggressive, Nathan said, and Victoria could hear the tension in his voice, despite his attempt to sound casual. Sterling marketing isn't a significant enough threat to warrant that level of response. Oh, but I think it is. Hartwell's voice carried a note of satisfaction, like a cat that had cornered a mouse. You see, I've done my research on Ms. Sterling. Quite thoroughly, actually. She's built an impressive business. But more importantly, she's the kind of person who inspires loyalty. The kind of person who might make a man want to be better than he is. The truth revealed Victoria realized with growing horror that Hartwell had orchestrated everything. Nathan's visit to her office, the business competition, even this conversation, it was all a test to determine whether Nathan still cared about her. You're fishing, Robert, Nathan said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I then? It won't matter. To you that I've already set certain plans in motion. Miss Sterling's company will face some unfortunate financial difficulties in the coming weeks. Clients will mysteriously withdraw their contracts, suppliers will become unreliable, and investors will lose confidence. Unless, of course, you can give me a compelling reason why I should call off these arrangements. The trap was perfect and devastating. If Nathan showed any concern for Victoria's business, he would confirm that she still mattered to him. Remained indifferent. Her company would be destroyed. Victoria couldn't bear to listen to Nathan struggle with this impossible choice. She stepped out from behind the statue, her red dress making her impossible to miss in the dim gallery lighting. There's no need for threats, Mr. Hartwell, she said, her voice steady, despite the terror coursing through her veins. I'm right here. The confrontation, both men turned toward her. Nathan's face going pale with fear while Hartwell's expression shifted to one of delighted surprise. Ms. Sterling, Hartwell said with mock pleasure. How wonderful to finally meet you. Though I must say, your presence here raises some interesting questions about the nature of your relationship with Mr. Cross. Victoria walked toward them with as much dignity as she could muster. My relationship with Mr. Cross is purely professional. He informed me yesterday that his company would be competing with mine, and I wanted to discuss the terms of that competition like adults. How refreshingly direct, Hartwell murmured, but his eyes were calculating. And yet, here you are at a charity gala, meeting in the shadows like lovers in a romantic novel. We're meeting in private because business negotiations often require discretion, Victoria replied smoothly. Surely a man of your experience understands that. The gamble. Nathan stared at Victoria with a mixture of admiration and terror. She was playing the most dangerous game of her life, and one wrong word could destroy everything. Besides, Victoria continued, turning to Nathan with an expression of cool professionalism. Mr. Cross made his position quite clear yesterday. He views our past relationship as a youthful mistake that has no bearing on our current business dealings. I respect his honesty, even if it wasn't what I hoped to hear. That lie came easily. But Victoria saw Nathan flinch slightly at her words. She was giving him the perfect out, allowing him to maintain his cover while protecting herself. Hartwell studied them both carefully. How mature of you both, though I confess, I'm curious about something, Ms. Sterling. If your relationship with Nathan is purely professional, you won't mind if I share some information with you. What kind of information? Victoria asked, though she dreaded the answer. It's a kind that might help you understand exactly who you're doing business with. The final revelation. Hartwell reached into his jacket and withdrew a tablet, which he handed to Victoria. The screen showed a series of photographs, Nathan meeting with various individuals over the past 3 years. Documents bearing his signature, financial records showing massive transfers of money. You see, Miss Sterling, your former lover isn't just a successful businessman. He's been instrumental in helping certain government officials redirect public funds into private accounts. The technology his company has developed has been used to spy on American citizens. His success has been built on corruption, espionage, and worse. Victoria stared at the images, her mind reeling. Even knowing that Nathan had been forced into this world, seeing the evidence of his involvement was devastating. "I don't understand what this has to do with me," she said carefully. "It has to do with you, because Nathan Cross is currently under federal investigation. The FBI has been building a case against him for months. Anyone associated with him, personally or professionally, will inevitably be drawn into that investigation."
That
Threat was clear. Associate with Nathan and face federal prosecution. Victoria looked at Nathan, seeing the anguish in his eyes as he watched his past destroy any chance of a future with her. "Love's ultimate test. Thank you for the warning," Victoria said finally, handing the tablet back to Hartwell. "I'll be sure to keep our business relationship appropriately distant." Hartwell smiled with satisfaction. "I knew you were an intelligent woman. Nathan, I trust this clarifies your position as well." Nathan nodded stiffly. "Perfectly clear." "Excellent. Then I'll leave you both to conclude your business discussion. Miss Sterling, it's been a pleasure meeting you. I do hope we'll have the opportunity to speak again soon." After Hartwell left, Victoria and Nathan stood in silence among the ancient artifacts. The weight of history surrounded them, but the history they had created together seemed more fragile than the millennial relics. "I'm sorry you had to hear that," Nathan said finally. "Are you?" Victoria looked at him directly. "Are you sorry? I learned the truth about what you've become. Or are you sorry that I'm another casualty of the choices you've made?" "Both," he admitted. "I never wanted you to be part of this world, but I am part of it now. The moment you walked into my office, you made me part of it." Victoria's voice was steady, but Nathan could see the pain in her eyes. "The question is, what are we going to do about it?" The choice. Nathan stared at her, hardly daring to hope that she might choose to fight alongside him rather than walk away. "We could run," he said quietly. "I have enough money to disappear completely. We could go somewhere Hartwell would never find us, and spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders. Yes." Victoria was quiet for a long moment, weighing her options. She could walk away, rebuild her business, and pretend Nathan Cross had never existed. It would be the safe choice, the smart choice. Or she could choose love over safety, knowing it might cost her everything. "There's a third option," she said finally, "which is—" Victoria smiled, and for the first time since Nathan's return, it reached her eyes. "We stop running. We fight back. We use your connections and my resources to expose Hartwell and everyone like him. Victoria, if we do that, we might actually have a chance at the life we always wanted. Together." Nathan reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. "It could get us both killed, and we'll die knowing we chose love over fear." As they stood together in the shadow of ancient kings and queens who had faced their own impossible choices, Victoria Sterling and Nathan Cross made the decision that would define the rest of their lives. They would stop running from their past and start fighting for their future. The game was far from over. But for the first time in 3 years, they were playing on the same side, outside the museum. The city lights twinkled like stars, indifferent to the drama playing out among the relics of civilizations past. But inside the Egyptian wing, two people who had lost each other were finally ready to find their way home. The story of their love had been written in secrets and sacrifice, but its final chapters would be written in truth and courage. Whatever came next, they would face it together, and in the end, that was worth any risk.